I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today, I'm joined by Miss Cindy Woulfe. She is a full-time mother, a certified meditation teacher, and wellness advocate residing in Connecticut with her husband and two sons. A University of Colorado at Boulder graduate in communication and an Institute of Integrative Nutrition alumna, she balances motherhood with her passion for mindfulness practices. A regular contributor to Fairfield County Mom, she offers compassionate guidance for mothers seeking balance and amid life's overwhelming moments. Her first her first book, In the Weeds, A Guide to Saving Your Own Soul on This Crazy Journey Called Motherhood, released back in October. And she is here today to share her story and share some really good advice and some really good tips. So, Cindy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Noah.
So feel free to kind of dive into a little bit more about yourself and share what you do professionally.
Okay. So I became a mom 11 years ago, and it was something I always knew I wanted. It was definitely on my list of dreams. And I was so happy when I found out I was pregnant. Felt very prepared, and I thought I would jump in and just know right away what I was doing. And for a while, it did feel like everything was on track. And then one night, I put my son to bed. He was about one at the time, and I was waiting for my husband to come home from work. I had everything cleaned up, I had dinner ready for us, and I just sat down in my son's child-sized chair and I checked out. And the first thought in my head was, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? Why do I feel so exhausted and out of life force? And that night was the first night that I really started to dig into what was going on and what was really going on with me under the surface. So then what I realized was I was so out of touch with my own identity, and I was so overwhelmed with the constant demand of motherhood. And then I was also feeling guilt because I felt very lucky to have the choice to stay home with my son. But then I realized how hard it really was. So I had all that going on. And from that was my starting point to dig a little deeper and figure out how to help myself.
So when did you realize that your mental health was suffering after becoming a mom?
I think it was that first night. And it was the first time I really allowed myself to explore what could be going on instead of distracting myself or having a glass of wine or pretending I was fine. I started to dig deep. I started to journal more, ask myself questions, what was going on. I tried to do some research, but I honestly felt very alone. I felt like I was the only mother who was struggling, and I was taking for granted this chance to be home with my kids. And The more I started to talk to other moms around me, the more I noticed that they started to let their guards down too. And I realized that I wasn't alone, that a lot of women feel this way. And that's what really led me to want to write the book because I thought if someone like me who could feel that, I can't imagine what other people are feeling. So I wanted to make sure to get the message out there that there is help. There are things you can do and you're not alone. I didn't want anyone to feel alone like I did because it's a really scary feeling.
For the book, how did you come up with the title In the Weeds?
Well, so years earlier, I first I had a corporate job out of college, and then I left that job to pursue an acting career. And I started working in a restaurant in New York City at night, and then I could audition during the day. And I loved it. I loved the energy. I loved how busy it got. But there's a term called in the weeds when you work in the restaurant business. And it basically means that you are so overwhelmed. It's like a giant rush of customers, a giant rush of orders. And in that moment, it feels so intense, like you're not going to make it. And then you do. The rush slows down. You get everyone what they need. You get a giant wad of tips at the end. And it's actually an incredible feeling. But I recognize that feeling in early motherhood, especially just that constant activity and constant need to do this and do this and do that and do that. And you can't really focus on your own needs for a minute. Everything goes to this baby or this child or children that constantly need you. And it felt very similar to that in the weeds feeling.
So, what's been the greatest lesson you've learned from motherhood so far?
I think that I learned how to truly give myself grace. And in loving my child and now my children unconditionally, with all the work I've put in, I think I have finally started to love myself unconditionally too. And I think that's highly underrated is how the relationship with yourself really can develop after you become a mom. You think that you're giving birth to these babies and that's going to be your constant focus, but if you take a step back and focus on yourself a little bit, I think it's a chance to really start to love yourself unconditionally as well and show yourself the same care that you give your children. It's an incredible gift.
What seem to be some major misconceptions people have about motherhood?
So I think that we're constantly seeing sleeping babies and happy moms and peaceful homes and organic baby food and all these impossible levels that we're all trying to reach. And there are those moments, absolutely. There's tons of times that it's blissful and that you get those warm, fuzzy feelings. But the reality is that's not the majority. With all those good feelings comes the overwhelm and the dirty diapers and just a total feeling of being so out of control because you just don't know what's next and you can't make it up. Some of the situations you'll find yourself in are just so crazy that if someone had told you before you became a mom, I don't think you would believe them because that's how intense and crazy some of the situations get. So I think we see a lot of the positive, which is there, but then we don't talk enough about the reality of it.
Does parenting have what's kind of some of the downsides to parenting?
Well, I think what's hard is you are forced to give all of your energy to this tiny little being as well it should be. They need a lot of care. They're adorable. They sometimes need your body, they need your energy, they need your time, they need your focus, and that's incredible to be able to do that for another person. But I think your nervous system, especially for women, and your body takes such a hit in constantly giving to someone else that if you don't rescue yourself, you will get lost. And then you will start to feel exhausted and resentful. So I think that's the biggest challenge is maintaining that sense of balance so you don't get in the danger zone so that you can take as great care of your children as you can.
When you started putting yourself first, what were some changes you immediately saw after the fact?
Well, what was so interesting to me was it started out as a way to save myself. Like I wanted myself back. And what I realized was my baby, who was not even 2 at the time, was so responsive. So the days that I was able to show up as my best self, the days that I was able to come in strong and balanced and feeling like I mattered too, were the days that our connection was the strongest. Like he was directly affected by the way I care for myself. So instead of looking at it as, okay, this is necessary because you might lose yourself, you can look at it as this is important work because it actually affects your connection to your child. And as much as it can feel like pressure to be to have your whole home and your family depend on your mood, it's also such a gift because the more you can show up, the happier everyone is. And the moms, I'm sure it's different in other families, but for the majority, the moms are the mood of the family.
What techniques have you used to help kind of deal with the mental stress of parenting that has really helped you that you would like to other people to know about?
So I think the my main point would be that this kind of work is not like one dramatic shift and then your work is done. It's a lot of soul searching. It's tiny little things you can add to your everyday that really add up and make a difference. And I think when we feel overwhelmed or we feel stressed out, it can be so tempting to make a giant list of all these things you want to change. And then you say, oh, I don't have time for that. I can't give that much energy. And you give up. And instead, if you choose some of the smaller things you can do, the little things you can add to every day without taking away time from your baby, you, after time, especially me, I realized like about a week in, if I missed one of my little tweaks or one of my little additions, I felt a difference in my mood. So that's when I realized, okay, these small changes are making a huge difference and they're doable because they're small. So they might be insignificant to someone else, but to me, they are affecting my whole mood, my whole day, and my whole connection with my child.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received about being a mom?
Hmm. I've received so much bad advice. It's hard to think of the good. Um, that's really hard to answer because I can't think of one piece of advice. The one thing I will say when I was we first moved to our new home with my second son, who was a baby, and my first son, who was a full-on toddler at that point, getting into everything. And my friend across the country sent me a text asking me how we were doing and how I was doing. And I said, I don't know. I feel like I'm drowning. The house isn't baby proofed. I was super overwhelmed. And I remember she said to me, motherhood can be a dark hole sometimes. And as scary as that sounds, that one piece of advice or one comment from her let me feel so validated in what I was feeling. And after that, she assured me once I got my oldest into preschool, once we found a routine, things would look up. And that was hugely liberating for me because I realized I wasn't doing it wrong. Because it felt hard didn't mean I was doing it wrong. It is going to feel hard, even if you're doing it right. So I don't know if that's really advice, but that was certainly a piece of language that made me feel very validated and gave me a lot of hope.
So you had mentioned that you had gone through a lot or you've received a lot more words for advice. What's been some of the worst advice you've received?
So I think it's important to recognize that every generation does things differently. So the things we are told by our doctors are definitely different than maybe the generation of our parents were told by doctors. So right away, advice that's not safe anymore would probably be the worst. Like putting a baby down with a bottle or putting the baby down on their tummy so their head doesn't get bent. Like you're never supposed to do that when they're when they're infants. But I think I had someone tell me when my son was about 4 weeks old that if I kept holding him, he would get too used to that. And I remember thinking, well, why don't I want him to get used to that? Like, I don't want to put him down so I can get things done when he's 4 weeks. Like, this is what he needs from me right now. And I knew that in my heart that that advice was not for me. So I would say that was probably the worst because I have an incredible bond with my son. And I'm happy I had that time where I got to hold him all the time. He felt safest in my arms. And I'm really glad I took advantage of that and didn't listen to that piece of advice and try to put him down all the time.
Was write was writing the book easy for you? Excuse me. Was writing the book easy for you?
I would say it did become easy because I started putting notes in my phone early on. And I think because so much of it is my own stories that it wasn't always easy, but it always felt really good to get it all out. And it helped me process my experience and then be able to say to someone else, okay, here's what I learned. Here's what you can learn from reading this story. So it wasn't always easy, but it was incredibly healing for me, for my journey to be able to share that. And if it can help one person, I'm happy.
So how has the advice shared in your book shown up for you in your life outside of motherhood?
That's the incredible thing is a lot of the tips I give can also be applied to other parts of life. So I think that's also part of the incredible journey of motherhood is like things like learning to set boundaries or valuing your time or appreciating the little things or developing a gratitude practice. All of that would be my advice for motherhood. And all of that affects the rest of your life too. So even if you're not a mom, those are practices I swear by and can easily transfer to every part of your life. And the more you do them, the stronger they get. So if you start in motherhood, you can carry that into every other part of your life as well.
How has this whole journey as a mom and being a mother to two kids, how has this changed you personally?
Oh boy. I'd say it's been the thing that has changed me the most because I think it broke me open a little bit, maybe in a way that I needed to be broken open. And I feel like a lot of the lessons I've learned in giving myself grace and forgiving myself and realizing that I don't have to be perfect, I think those were things I needed to learn anyway. And it just, the lessons came through my children. Like I always say, my children are my greatest teachers because they've shown me exactly where I fall short, what I need to work on, what I need to heal from my own childhood. Because I think that is a topic that's not discussed as much as it should be as well, is how having your own kids, whether you want to or not, forces you to really examine your own childhood and see what you would change from it, what you needed that you didn't get, what you loved that you want to make sure you carry forward with your children. And it's not about blaming your parents, not done in a malicious way, just in a way to heal yourself. Like, what do I need to heal? What is still coming up for me? And it can be incredibly healing to give your children attention or something or comfort in a way that you didn't have it. So then by giving your child that you're able to heal your own inner child. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And if you let it heal you, it will. If you're willing to look into those places and really feel all of that, it is incredibly healing.
The state of our country really right now is really tough for everyone. How hard is it now to be a mom compared to what it used to be like maybe when you first had your first newborn?
Honestly, I think that it's hard for every time. I feel like there's good and bad in every situation. So I feel like social media is a huge component now, which can be really bad for your mental health, but then can also be a huge resource. So I think if you learn how to use it properly and not let it get you down into the throes of comparison, it can be an incredible resource. Like generations previous didn't have the chance to just Google, okay, my baby's up half the night, what's going on? Or my daughter got this crazy rash on her foot. Can someone tell me what's going on here? I think as women, we are naturally drawn to community and we naturally want to help each other. And I think social media presents a chance to really do that, it also presents the chance to tear each other down. So I think as long as you can learn to use some of the newer tools the way they're meant to be used and not pay attention to the noise or the negativity, I think we have an advantage over generations past. But I think for every generation, there's good and there's bad. I don't think it's different by the times. Even though the times feel scary now, I think they probably felt scary before everyone had access to all the information as well.
There's a lot of new moms that tend to get pregnant and have kids at a young age. What advice do you have to young mothers that they may have not have learned before that you've learned that you would like to share with them?
I think maybe just understanding that this is a phase and that every phase is going to pass. So I think when you have a little less life experience, things can feel catastrophic, or you feel like nothing will change, or this will always be your situation. It will always feel this hard. And I think with experience comes that perspective that, okay, this is one phase. I can get through it. This is going to pass. And I think the incredible benefit of then having kids is every situation that you find yourself in that feels impossible, when you make it through and you're like, I did that. Then every new situation, you're like, okay, I can do these hard things. I can do this. I am capable. So I think you gain an incredible amount of strength as you go. So I think just learning that you give yourself grace, everything's going to pass, and there is always help available to you. I think that would be my best advice for young moms because this is just one phase. There's going to be many more.
There's a lot of moms out there that have been moms for a long time that they kind of feel like they've failed as a mom. Is there any kind of advice that you can give to them about how they can get out of that mindset and kind of very look positively on their past as a mom?
I think the best thing to do is one, to accept that the past is past. So you can't go back and undo the way you mothered. But I think you also have to really find it in your heart to forgive yourself. Everything you did in the moment was probably what you felt was best. And it was never going to be perfect, and that's okay. But I think there's incredible strength in having self reflective moments and being able to look back and say, maybe I didn't react the way I should in this chance. If I could do it again, this is how I would react. Not so much from a coulda, shoulda, woulda, but writing all that out and journaling that kind of stuff can help you then handle future situations. Okay, so now this is coming up for me again, and now I know I'm going to react this way. But I think you just need to give yourself some grace. No one is perfect. No one does a perfect job. We are all human. You are human. Learn to forgive yourself and self-reflect so you can do better next time and you can move on. And it never stops motherhood. So even when your kids are grown, you're still mothering. So I think really taking a deep look and self-reflecting is a way to heal and also do better in the future.
Well, Cindy, I've appreciated you so much for coming on here. I think it's really important for a lot of mothers to really hear this story and hear this episode because motherhood is hard.
Hmm.
Um, Especially for my mom. She was a single mom. She raised me um without a father figure in my life. She raised me completely by herself. And I just knew how hard it was for her to be a mom. And she thinks that she always failed as a mom, and I always have told her that you never failed, you never have done anything wrong. So I think hearing this story is going to help so many young moms, and as well as moms that feel like they've failed their child or failed as a mom, can listen to it and say, you know what? Yeah, I did succeed as a mom. I did do well as a mom. And so I, it's been such an honor to have you on. You know, if people would like to if they would like to follow you and maybe if they have questions about motherhood that didn't get answered today that they have, and they would like to get in contact with you, where's the best place and where all are you available at for people to get in contact with you?
So I think the best place would be my website. It's www.cindycapriowolf.com. And then I also have a Facebook page for In the Weeds and an Instagram page for In the Weeds. But can I also say too, when you talked about your mom, I think there's also something very powerful in that she's able to be honest with you about how she feels. And I think when we realize that we're not perfect and we're able to show our kids that, I think it also gives you and our children permission that they don't have to be perfect either, that they are also human. So I think there is a lesson in that. I think there is something to knowing your parents are human. I think it's important to realize they were just doing their best and they're not perfect, and now you don't have to be perfect. I think the most important thing is being able to honestly reflect, like it sounds like your mom has, forgiving herself and teaching you how to forgive yourself when you make mistakes. So I think there's a lot of power in that. So congrats to your mom for that, for being able to be honest and showing you that you don't have to be perfect either.
I I've seen it that way. I've always told her that you never did fail because a lot of moms that were in this situation that would have been single moms would have easily put me up for adoption or easily had an abortion. So that would have been the simplest thing to do, but you did take it upon yourself to commit to it and you did a great job with it. And I think that a lot of parents and moms probably feel that way too
Hmm.
about they've gone through certain scenarios and they've kind of been raised under the same circumstances to where they think that they failed, and it's completely not true that you totally failed because you did the best you could, and that's all you can
Hmm.
really ask for and hope for is to do your best. So
And we're
I
just
think
human, all of us. So
I think that are such a huge inspiration to a lot of young moms and future moms out there to showcase that motherhood isn't easy, but it's also one of the most rewarding things that you can also have in your life. So I appreciate you so much for coming on here and sharing your story and sharing your advice with me today.
thank you so much for having me and for you also sharing with me.
So to my listeners, I will put her website down there. If you have questions about motherhood or if you're a young mom that has questions that didn't get answered today, feel free to reach out to her on her website
Hmm.
and learn more about what she is really preaching and kind of sharing with the world is all on there. Feel free to follow the podcast on the socials as well. Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And as always, listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It is everywhere, so feel free to subscribe so that you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Y'all hopefully have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.